Hey everybody, welcome to episode 15 of What Not to Miss with Chris. My goal is to put out quick, relevant content that explains the why behind the what in order to positively impact the freight community. On episode 14, we talked about a couple of ways shippers may be able to keep costs down during periods of extreme volatility. Today I'm going to talk about how the consumer aspect of the new stimulus package passed by the Biden administration may affect the logistics industry moving into the second quarter of this year. To start, let's look at what happened after the first two rounds of stimulus checks hit consumers' pockets by examining the outbound tender volume index in blue here, which is the amount of freight being tendered by shippers to contracted carriers, to truckstop.com's 7-day van rate per mile index, represented here in green. Okay, so a good place to start here is back in March of last year. We saw a huge spike in volumes related to panic buying induced by an enormous amount of uncertainty surrounding COVID. Now, this, however, only lasted for a short period of time as people can only hoard toilet paper and Spam for so long. Now, by the beginning of April, volumes had fallen over 30% in less than a 30-day period. And though slightly delayed, rates followed a very similar pattern. Now, during the same period, the CARES Act was passed and signed into law. Millions of Americans began receiving checks right around the third week of April. And by the end of the month, over 100 million Americans had received some form of government assistance. Now, by May, the combination of people stuck at home, not spending money on services, and receiving an influx of cash caused volumes to skyrocket as consumers began furnishing home offices, jumping into home DIY projects, purchasing electronics, and a number of other goods to supplement their lack of service-based spending. Now, the high level of goods-based consumer spending or demand, coupled with the insufficient truck capacity or supply, kept and has kept rates elevated as demand has consistently outpaced supply over the past 12 months. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The chart behind me compares volumes over the past 3 years. Blue is 2021, purple 2020, green 2019, and orange 2018. Take a look at when the second stimulus check hit in January of this year. The first quarter of the year is typically pretty stale, as you can see, as most consumers have just spent their life savings on Christmas gifts. Now, this year, however, we saw a quick bounce back to holiday peak levels shortly after that second stimulus check was received by millions of Americans. Now, this helped keep volumes 25 to 30% higher on average than we've seen in the past couple of years. Okay, so enough backstory. I'm sure there's very few people that want to relive the past 12 months. Let's look at what the future holds, especially Q2 of this year. When we're talking about that, the third round of stimulus checks will start, and for most probably already has started hitting consumers' pockets and bank accounts. And this check is expected to be larger than the past two for most. This check, although larger, I'm not sure will have the same impact that the first one did back in April of last year. With that being said, if we remove last year from the equation and focus on the next 3 months, you can see that in 2018 and 2019, we saw little volatility in Q2 right up until Memorial Day, which is typical during national holidays, followed by volumes ramping back up before the 4th of July. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think we'll get the same boost in volumes from the third stimulus that we did from the first. However, I do believe it will follow a pattern similar to what we saw in 2018 and 2019, but at an unseasonably high rate throughout the second quarter. Especially because the U.S. savings rate is currently soaring which is an indication that a large percentage of Americans still have stimulus money left over from rounds one and two. Now, on the flip side, you now have over 90 million doses of the COVID vaccine that have been administered in states such as Texas and Mississippi that have removed mask mandates, with, I'm sure, more states to follow suit soon. Um, with that, the return of service spending is inevitable and will play a role in the decreased movement of goods. How much of a decrease and when? Only time will tell. And because at the end of the day, I'm just a guy standing in front of a TV sharing my opinion, I'm not sure when that is. So, if you found this information beneficial, please like, share, and or leave your comments below. And until next time, I'm Chris Eads, and thanks for joining me on another episode of What Not to Miss with Chris.